crew to save the day.
The Mighty House crew is on the job. This is
Mighty House.
Today we're going to talk about ICE versus EV and figure out which one you might want to get next. Before we do that, let's click on the bell and dingle down there and do all that fun stuff. That way you get notified the next time we
subscribe and
one of those
click
things.
on the bell so you get alerted when we have a new one. Yep.
There you go. That's all we got to do. So we're going to discuss a little ICE versus EV. And there you go. Gasoline, internal combustion engine, gasoline, or EV, electric vehicles. So what's going in your garage next? This might be foretelling here because it's actually
gas.
It's all on the correct side, I think, of the
right.
show. So, getting started, what's going to go in your garage first? And just to let you know some of the history here, the very first cars were actually electric, and those were built in 1832, and here's an 1832 EV. So even back then, 1832.
Looks comfortable.
Yes, it does. So this was 1832, and then by, 1838, 1839, something like that, it turned into this. So there you go. You got a nice enclosed. I think even Jay Leno's got one of these in his garage. So if you want to go and watch how that works and find out a little more history on this vehicle, I mean, it's over 100 years old, and it still works fine. He drives it, and he drives it on the show. So EV's been around a long time.
Batteries, right?
Say again?
Lead-acid batteries?
Yes, lead-acid batteries. So, but, 1832, EV's been around a long time. And it's probably it's the battery inefficiencies that really started getting things going, I think. But the very first race, held in Chicago, was actually won by an electric vehicle. This is an electric tricycle. So there you go. That's a motorcycle, tricycle. And
just to stick on the racing point for a moment, I mean, if you have a Tesla Model P, which has the dual motors and the higher amp hour batteries,
right?
Ferraris and Lamborghinis will not beat it in a drag race.
Yes.
It's pure torque. Four motors is pure torque.
Yes.
So as far as racing, no, I think electric vehicles have proven themselves to be far superior. And I'm waiting for the E-Series to get more popular, like Indy and kart racing and IRL and NASCAR. I'd really like to see more true electric racing because that's where technology gets better. And
but what's the racing series, the international racing series? It's not kart. What's the
F1?
F1. They're running hybrids in that. So
yes.
So I mean, there's where the hybrid
technology. There's a league
technology
that is running all. It's they are running an E-Series, which is all electric, but it's still not very popular, and not everybody's behind it.
Right.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. We're going to get into this. It's the charging technology. It's the battery technology that's really lagging, and that's why back in 1832, the EVs kind of got overtaken by the internal combustion engine because it's a lot easier, faster to charge, you got more mileage out of your tank. So
there's more to it than that, though. I mean, when they struck oil in Pennsylvania back whatever year, they used the oil and they refined the oil, and it was for lighting.
Right.
They used to burn gasoline off as a byproduct.
Yeah,
just burn it.
Yeah. Well, and then you had whale oil that turned into the
Standard Oil says, maybe we can do something with this, and they were trying to build internal combustion engines at that time, and they realized that kerosene didn't work. It was too viscous, and it would foul.
Right.
So then they found out they were burning off this gasoline stuff, and that's really what changed it. And because it was cheap, it overtook the electric, because we didn't have an electric infrastructure then either.
Correct.
So gasoline took off, and of course, then you have the conspiracy theory. We have the 100-mile carburetor that GM and everybody owns the patents, and they won't release, and blah blah blah. So
sure. But
that was part of it.
Right. And the other side is, can't you take a Model A and run that on moonshine? Because it'll run on virtually anything. No, you're good.
Most of those were low compression engines, though. That's why.
Yeah, so you can run them on virtually anything. So the real question, are we ready to switch to electric cars?
And that's more and more, like I said, when I started working on this with you today, it kind of came out kind of negative, and it's not really that I'm against it. I just truly don't believe we're ready.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, that you can't just start putting electric cars in everybody's garage. Perfect example is I have the garage space, but I don't have the electrical capacity to put more than a 30 amp charger out there.
Right. So we can get into that, but let's go back to that EV charger. Then you got do you think the horse and buggy guys, we're standing around and going, look at that. There's no way. Where are you going to get gasoline? I can feed my horse anywhere. What are you going to do with this gasoline? And if you drive up a hill, it shuts off. You got to go up backwards because it didn't have a fuel pump back then. So, there was all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that when this was going
flat
on.
Tires, because these guys had steel ringed wooden wheels. No, there was a lot of that going on, and I agree. I mean, it's a transition period, no doubt.
Sure, and I think we're in that. I mean, we're in the dead heat middle of that transition from ICE vehicles to EVs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think one of the problems that you're going to have is, just think about, even though the automobile became so popular from around 1912 going forward, I mean, Ford did everything so everybody could afford it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it wasn't until after World War II, when Eisenhower signed the Interstate Highway Bill in 1956, that we started getting roads other than privately built. You know, Route 1 from Chicago to Miami was privately funded, and it was to get, gangsters down to Miami. But I mean, even Route 66, for the most part, to get out west was more or less privately funded, done by states. It wasn't until 56 that we started addressing road conditions.
Right. Well, and that interstate highways.
I think we're in a similar situation. We're getting all these electric vehicles, shoved at us now because all of a sudden nobody had any technology. Now everybody has them coming out, and Ford's going to be done with gasoline. Ford's actually split. I don't know if you're aware of this. Ford shed the electric car company so that they can, they're diverging.
Right.
So that when they're done with gas in 30, Ford goes away, Ford E stays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you realize that.
No.
So Ford's already pulled that act. But so where I'm heading with that is we need more infrastructure. It's going to be charging facilities. It's going to be, battery replacements and things like that. Well, all that infrastructure, all that money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Back up one more picture there.
And you can't take it from the highway tax, because the highway tax only gets paid through gasoline purchases.
Right. Yeah. So go one more. Right. No. Forward.
The other forward.
One more. Stop right there.
There you go.
Okay. So, but here's part of that infrastructure stuff we're talking about, because now you've got transformers, and you're going to have all these homes that are going to need regular power, but now they've also got chargers in them. So how do you manage all of that electricity? And I think that's kind of part of what you're talking about there. We need to build the infrastructure, and we need to have that kind of stuff ready to go. So,
well, and part of that, and let me see if you got that far ahead of me, I'm not sure, but one of the things that, the European Union, they had settled on a charger.
Yes.
The device to plug in,
Right.
And I think it was SRS, it's the one that General Motors happens to use. But here, I did read recently that the U.S. is working on it, and of course they'll get around to it in about 10 years.
Sure.
But just because it's our federal government, the way they work. But they need to decide on a standardized charging format so that every EV builder knows what to do, and then you feel comfortable buying it. You pull up, you see a sign that says EV charger, and then you're in your trunk looking for the adapter. And if you don't have it, what do?
Right.
Walk down the street, get a can of electricity?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Yes, it's just we're not ready.
Right.
That's how I feel.
I think right now the amount of people that are purchasing EVs and the infrastructure is kind of going hand in hand. And I mean, right now you can buy an electric RV and drive that across the country, charging it as you go. Now, are you going to get there as fast as you would using gasoline or diesel? No, you're not, because you have to stop every 200-300 miles and recharge. So, but if that's all you drive in a day anyway, and you're not in a hurry to get across, you do fine. And you could do that today with the infrastructure we've got already. Is it ideal?
But that's
No.
something that Tesla's already gotten ahead on.
Sure.
Tesla started putting charging stations all along I-80.
Yep.
Now, the Tesla battery is the chassis of the vehicle.
Yep.
So if you lift that car, if I remember right, there's only 8 bolts that hold it in.
Right.
You can change a battery in 12 minutes.
Correct.
So if you pull into a station, if you're in that big a hurry, you can actually have the car go up, have a battery swapped out in 12 minutes, and you're back on the road. That's
Yeah.
enough time to take a bathroom break, get a burger,
Uh-huh.
and come back out, and your car's done.
Right. Yeah, and I think
No.
I think they're starting to move away from that, and they went to the
I'm sure they are.
They went to the supercharger instead.
The 440 volt crazy thing.
Yeah. So you could do the supercharger and go have lunch and come back, and you're going to be ready to go again. But the battery swap thing, I think the mechanics of having to do that it just wasn't working out very well. So I think they've
So I got to
scrapped
pay
that whole.
somebody to do it, and that's going to
Yeah.
be more than the cost of a tank of gas.
Sure.
Because that's really what it comes down to, right? So,
Right.
But again, is there enough capacity in our grid? I live down where I'm at. We get majority of our power from a nuclear power plant by Lake Okeechobee.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before. They've not built a new nuclear power plant in 20 years. I don't know. I tried
if not
looking it
longer.
up, but I didn't come up. It's been a long time. I
Right.
don't even know if there's any being permitted.
No, and part of the reason is that the insurance companies will not insure them. So what has to happen is the government has to back those and insure those in case there's any, spill or anything like that.
Oops.
No insurance company will ever cover those. So that's kind of the problem with them. So if we build them, the government has to approve it and then backstop that in case there's any damage or any spillage, and the government's not willing to sign off on those. So that's what I've heard, and that's why we don't have any right now.
Okay.
Is it
But
not a
wind and
good
solar-
idea?
wind and-
I don't know. I think it is a good idea.
I just think it's a great stepping stone. There is danger involved with it. I get
Oh, yeah.
that, but it's still way cleaner than burning coal or gas, right? So
I
that's
think without question. Yeah.
But it still creates the issue. So
What do you do with the waste is the
is
issue.
is there enough infrastructure here for every? I live in a cul-de-sac. There's 30 homes. If we all of a sudden had 15 electric vehicles on the street, would we have enough power in the lines for all of us to plug in at night?
No, and I think that's exactly what we've got here. And what could happen, and what we've done with some of the EV chargers, and I'm trying to think, Clipper Creek is one system that we install. And if we go into a condo building and they only have a limited electric service, we can't throw in 25 chargers and be able to power them all because it's just not big enough. So what we do then is they do power sharing. So if one person plugs in, they're going to get the full power. Two, they're going to get the full power. At some point, when you start plugging more in, what's going to happen is they're going to reduce the power on all of them. So instead of getting 40 amps across 3, you're going to get 30 amps across 4 or 5, and they're just going to keep stepping it down like that. So
you're doing load shedding.
So you do load shedding, load sharing, however you want to call it.
But you get up in the morning figuring your car should be fully charged because you got to run to Indianapolis, and you find out you only got half a charge.
Right.
So now we got to stop somewhere before Indy to go get another charge.
Or what that system will also do, you could set a priority so that if I'm not leaving for 2 days, I plug in and I'm not leaving for a while, that's fine. Mine will charge whenever it can. But if somebody sets the priority to need charged right away, then they can actually do that and get more.
And I'm sure the people left to their own will always make sure that they're not just screwing their neighbor.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that system
It's
is
great
out
in
there.
theory.
Yeah, and you can program it and set it up to do that kind of stuff if you wanted to. So now that's on a condo level. So now let's take a neighborhood. You can do the same thing. Those chargers now can talk to each other throughout the whole neighborhood. And if somebody has a full charge and they're ready to go, that's great. Or they're almost done, it'll start shaving them first and give it to somebody else. So on a larger scale, you can push a lot more electricity, but that load sharing, load shaving, whatever term you want to use, does work, and it could work in a neighborhood level also. So the other option for this is, go, Kev. There you go. You could do this. And instead of relying on the grid, you now have you could have solar panels like this, you could have wind turbines, and that's all they are is isolated, individual charging areas that could then take care of it. So
Would they charge me for that electric if I had a carport that was generating electricity? Because that's illegal in Florida. You can't buy power from a third party.
Even if it's yourself.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I know. I can't
I'm telling
explain
you, this
it.
is a government thing that it drives me nuts. In Florida, it's illegal to buy electricity from a third party.
Yep.
So you can have an Amazon warehouse in Florida with 1 million square feet of rooftop.
Yep.
And you could have an investor who wants to put a solar farm up there, and he'll pay, Tesla a little money rent, for the rooftop.
Right.
Because they ain't doing anything anyway.
Right.
And then sell that electric back and all. No, it's illegal in Florida. Can't do that.
Right. Right.
Sunshine State can't do that.
No, because it doesn't protect whatever your PPG or whatever, whatever your
FP&L,
power
Florida
station
Power
is.
and Light.
Right.
Yeah, you got it.
So they're protecting themselves first. And that's happening throughout the country where
Absolutely.
they see what's coming and they know this, so they're buying their politicians. Sorry, that's my personal opinion, to prevent us from moving forward. And thank God the buggy whip manufacturers didn't have this kind of power and money. Otherwise, we'd still be driving buggies. So
Right. No, I get that. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's what's so hard. So the other thing that's funny is so for an electric vehicle owner, you're not buying gas, so you're not paying the highway tax on gasoline.
Right, and that means
Now we have an issue with infrastructure.
yes.
Right? We need charging stations along the highway and the roads, and we're going to need to we're probably going to need new roads at some point, right? Because they're
Sure.
still cars and they still weigh 2,800 pounds.
They actually weigh more than an ICE vehicle. It's because of the batteries.
Batteries. So
Those things.
there's more wear and tear on the roads. So
Yes.
I know Illinois had proposed at one point $1,000 a year tax on EVs.
Yep.
For that reason.
Yep.
Didn't go anywhere, I don't think. But,
No, not yet. But it's
but
gonna.
I
We're gonna
don't know
reach
that-
that point where it has
But
to.
$1,000 a year might be a little excessive. I spend $500 a year or whatever I spend on fuel. I don't know what I spend on that tax. I mean,
Right.
it could be an average. But again, just because of me, we leave this up to the government. It's not going to work.
So, but
just
what's going to
crazy.
happen, I think, is your licensing. When you buy new plates, you're just going to have to pay the road tax all at one shot. And
I agree.
That's
But who
what's going to
sets
have
that
to
amount?
happen. Say again?
If you've got a state that's flush with cash, like Florida, because of the tourist industry, and you got a state that's upside down like Illinois, because no tourism and a lot of stupidity.
Uh-huh.
So what happens? Your license fee could be $2,000 a year.
Right. So now I'm going to license
That's
my
what I'm saying.
vehicle.
It doesn't.
I'm going to license
Well,
it
that
in
just
Florida
means-
and then bring it back here.
Exactly what's going to happen. Exactly. All right. So that's a huge issue that I still think needs to get worked through. This is what I'm saying. It's not that I'm against electric vehicles. I think there's a lot of things we need to work through before we all just jump on the bandwagon.
Sure.
But I feel like they're really trying to push it down our throats right now. I mean, even, the president came out and said it when they complained about gas prices. They're like, go buy an electric vehicle. Like,
Right.
yeah, I got $80,000 to drop on a car.
Right.
My $30,000 truck, that's 20 years of gasoline.
Right.
The price difference.
Right.
So it doesn't just say, hey, let's just plug in. Plus,
Well,
my electric's not free.
No, you're still paying, what is it? 20, 30
Well,
bucks?
a lot less than yours.
20 to 30 bucks to go ahead and top off electrically from electrical fees. That's at a regular charging station. It'd be cheaper at home to charge at home because
And at night when it's low.
right. So that every EV charger we install, we tell them to call ComEd or the power
Their
company,
electric company.
and then go on real-time pricing, so that way, in the evening you program your car to start charging at midnight and be done at 5 or 6 in the morning. That's when power is really cheap. That's when you charge your vehicle. So now you don't have the cost for that.
And at what point then does that now catch up where everybody knows that trick? So everybody goes from midnight till 5 a.m. So now there is no cheap electricity ever.
That could be. That could be
No,
true.
but you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
a lot of things. So anyway, another cool article that I read, and this had to do with pushing the electric vehicles, was saying that people would not, and I think this came from like the Hemmings Motor News kind of thing, people would not be interested
Go
in
back one.
buying an electric vehicle unless they could get, 300 miles on a charge, because that would suit them. But they didn't want to spend more than $35,000. So you had to get that price point and that distance.
Right. Okay.
And
Now
the
go.
funny
Kev.
thing is, Well, we've made it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So just I went and looked this up when I was reading through this real quick. You can buy this. This is a Ford E or F-150 Lightning,
E.
the E model. It's all electric, 320-mile range. If you get the Pro Series, which is the contractor's truck, it's still all-wheel drive. You've got the boot storage. Now you can secure your tools inside here. You still have the bed, and 40 grand. So
And
you're
they have
there.
Something like 200,000 of them already ordered, or 20,000
Yeah.
pre-ordered.
Yep. Now
They can't get batteries.
well, it's the computer chips and all that garbage too that they can't get. We ordered our Transit, E-Transit, in October of 21. It's now June of 22, and they're telling us we're going to be getting it sometime this month. But I'm going to guess it's still. They told us it's built, but I don't know where it's at. So.
I'm telling you, Ford, they're all having problems. They all jumped on this so fast in the
Yep.
last 12 months. Like, you can't come up with battery packs.
Right.
So you realize if you open up one of these battery packs, regardless of who the manufacturer is, Tesla or Rivian or whoever, they're all little C cells, all put in series in little pods and
Yep.
all that.
Yep.
There's just not enough lithium stuff out there.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So.
and there's only a couple of lithium mines in the United States. One's not even one. There's just building the refinery right now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So something you had talked about earlier. Go ahead to the next picture there, Kev. Where are all these? Here's all the different plugs that
Yeah, I
are
did jump on
currently
that
out.
too soon. Apologize, but yes, those are your different plugs, and that is in itself is an issue.
Right. So the standard. This is becoming the more and more standard one, which is this one right here. But you'll find
And what's
all
the
of them.
lettering designation on that? Was it
I
like
don't- Can you zoom
SRS
in
or
on that, Kev? Can you hit the close up on it? So Tesla has their own charger, and they have their own system. That is own infrastructure, own network. But the reason he did that was because there was no standardization. So he standardized it for himself and all of his chargers. But it also now keeps the Tesla family in the Tesla family. You can't go up with that
From what I
Lightning and
understand,
do
there are
it.
2 adapters that are available to Tesla, and I don't know the adapters to which of those 8 that you're showing. You know what I'm
CCS
saying?
type
But there are 2 adapters that you can get with a Tesla.
Right. This is a CCS Type 4, is that it? Type 2. CCS Type
Oh,
2.
let's see. I keep saying SSR or whatever, but it's CCS.
Yeah.
That must be the one that General Motors went to, and that's what the EU is kind of latched onto, and that would be. I mean, that's what you do then, right? Everybody should just go with it. I mean, what the hell's the difference?
Correct. Well, it really doesn't matter. Like for Tesla, though, the reason he did that is now when you plug in, even if you had an adapter and you tried to plug another vehicle into Tesla, it sends a signal. The computer's talking. They go, nope, you're not a Tesla. You're out of here. Or your Tesla is not, you haven't paid up on something, so we're not going to supercharge you. You have to pay extra for supercharging. So they've got that kind of system within Tesla that you're not going to find. Now, you can take your Tesla and go charge it in anywhere, and plug it in with an adapter, and it's going to go because they don't talk to each other. They just say, yeah, you're an electric vehicle. Okay, here's the power. And that's the extent of it. So that's kind of where the plugs are at. And I think, I agree that over time, these are going to,
They need to. I mean,
they're
it's
going to
just-
standardize it,
you know.
and it'll work really well. So the next thing you had, okay, there you go. The government, they recently decided on the chargers, and the last item there we had was impact
just
on
the
mining, of trying to get all the lithium. So
Well, it's not just lithium. I mean, there's 200 pounds of copper in every car.
yeah, because of all the wires.
You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
can recycle copper, but it's electrical, so they don't use recycled copper. It all has to be constantly mined. So, if you go to like the environmental sites or the real anti-EV vehicles, it's one of the things that you'll read is the amount of raw materials that goes into each vehicle could be 400 or 500 pounds of refined materials, which means you have to go through tons and tons of refining to get to that.
Sure.
And that's where another issue is, because you're still burning fossil fuel to do that. You're still polluting water to do that. So that's where some of it comes from. You know what I mean? It's just, you got to figure out the way.
Personally, I think that's a bunch of hooey because you're going to mine whatever it is, ore, and to get your steel and the aluminum and all that other garbage anyway. So if mining's really a concern, I think it doesn't matter. You might as well go back to the horse because that's the only way you're going to stop from mining to create a vehicle. The other thing that's going to help with the batteries, and we don't have a picture for this, but that's the hydrogen stuff. So right now, part of the infrastructure that they're trying to do is come up with hydrogen-powered vehicles using the power cells to create the electricity.
Hydrogen fuel cells.
Correct. Now, you don't need that huge battery pack. You don't need all that weight. All you need is the hydrogen, and you could start taking all the gasoline stations and turning them into hydrogen stations fairly quickly. That could happen.
And I believe it's Sweden or Switzerland is absolutely loaded with those already.
Right.
But one of the problems, again, it's not really a problem, but every time you bring up hydrogen, somebody throws up a video of the Hindenburg.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You know, and the funny thing is, and seriously, the thing is that people don't realize when the Hindenburg burst into flames, of all the people that died, very few of them burned because hydrogen is so light that the fire is above your head. So if you got in an accident driving a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, and it erupted into flames, the hydrogen would float above the car and burn. You would probably not be burned at all.
Correct.
Where unlike oil and gasoline-based stuff, where you get any on you, it's going to burn until it goes out, right?
But if you get a hole in your tank, where does that gasoline go? It goes on the ground. It goes on the ground. So and then the vapors start to rise. That's what catches on fire, and the whole thing explodes.
So the other thing with hydrogen is that the molecules are so much smaller than oxygen molecules, and a lot of people don't realize that. So it requires better joints. You know what I mean? All your fittings and gaskets and things like that have to be way better. Otherwise, just sitting there, the hydrogen leaks out.
Right. You can't use
I don't think that's a bad way to go.
No.
But you go back to power generation, nuclear power plants are fusion.
Right.
They are building a fission power plant. There's 20 companies doing this, and it's supposed to come online in France in 2025. So the 20 countries, rather, have come together, United States included, to build this one fission plant.
Right.
If go to YouTube, go find it. It's a very, very cool video, how they're stabilizing this ring, the magnetic field, the temperatures. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
way
wild
above
stuff.
my pay grade.
Yes.
But if they can get this thing to work, the problem, they get it to work, it's going to be awesome. It's going to change, it will change the world.
Yep.
Because now you have non-polluting fission electricity. It's cheap.
Right.
But they've been working on this plant for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's still a few years away from being completed. Even if it was done and it worked, the very next day you started breaking ground on another one. When's it going to be ready? 20 years, 25 years? So I think it's all going to be baby steps. We have to work with what we have. Right.
But I still think instead of trying to build these massive grids, we should be going to microgrids. And then that way with the microgrids, you're doing individual towns, individual cities. And now you're not relying on that huge infrastructure because now you can keep it local. And that should help with the cost also. But, the utility companies, again, they can't have their hands and their fingers in it like they do now. So they push back against it. So personally, I had a Chevy Volt. I absolutely loved it until somebody T-boned us in it. And then my wife didn't like that being in a smaller car, so we went to a mid-size SUV. But if they had a mid-size SUV that was EV, we would probably be getting one if it was reasonably priced. So.
Well, that's the problem. They're not. I mean, it's like, the upper Teslas, like the Tesla 3, that was what, 36,000 it started. I don't know if they're 40,000 now. But they're still a pretty small car.
Right.
Not a lot of bells and whistles, not 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Right, yeah.
5. Still pretty quick, don't get me wrong.
So, I loved it.
The Mercedes and all of the rest of them, I mean, they're just crazy pricing.
Right.
But again, it's because there's no mass production.
Right. And as this comes around, it's going to be better. Chevy's coming out with their stuff. They've got the Hummers. The pickup trucks.
Yeah, let's
do that.
Let's make an electric vehicle and we'll just make it the biggest damn thing we can come up with.
So, but I guess my point here is you know, these vehicles that are coming out today, they need to trickle down through the system over time and become used vehicles so that people that can't afford the new ones could be starting to purchase these. And because of that trickle down over the next 15 to 20 years, this evolution of, you know, everybody switching to EV is going to happen over a long period of time because not all of us can afford that $90,000 Tesla. But maybe in 10 years when one's, you know, got 100,000 miles on it and it's a lot cheaper, then maybe we're going to be getting into it and we'll be able to get out of the
But one should
gasoline.
be concerned about, you know, we say, you know, a motor now, a ICE motor with 200,000 miles, for the most part with technology now, is just broke in.
Yes.
But a 10-year-old EV battery, not knowing how many cycles it's gone through, can be scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got Teslas with 400,000 miles on them, all original. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's just, you know, you're just going to, we'll have to work through it all.
yeah, we have to test
I mean, don't
it.
get me wrong. I love the idea of it. I mean, aside from the one truck that looks like a Japanese cartoon character.
That was the Rivian, I think.
I wasn't going to use the name.
Oh,
but
okay. But it's the bug eye. I think it looks
Yeah.
goofy. It does.
Yeah.
What's that? There's a
But
Fiat.
that one's supposed to go into, that was supposed to be in production already, and that was
is.
being built in Illinois it was an old Toyota plant or something, and I don't know that that's even moving.
Mitsubishi plant they are building, and I'm starting to see the Rivians around here. The guy down the
really?
street has one, yes. But there's a little Fiat that
You
has
just
a little
bowed.
bug eye.
Konnichiwa.
Yeah. So that one, it's just goofy looking. But you know, that whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. So all right,
The
I
only
think
thing worse is Tesla's version of a truck.
yes, that's awful. All right, so they're giving us the wrap-up sign. They're saying like, that's it. Come on, get out of here.
It's too long.
It's too long. So with that, we're going to say, I'd like to see everybody start to move towards EV, and over time, I think it
Let me back
will.
you up.
Go ahead.
What do you think? Put it in the comments below.
There you go. Are you buying an EV, or are you going to go ICE on your next vehicle? So with that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, dingle the bell, and we'll talk to you next time, because next time we're going to have it.
Keep it square and level.
Until next time.
time.
man.
Until next time, keep it square and level.
Hey, how about a methane vehicle? We could fuel
Oh,
it with
yeah.
beans and broccoli.
There you go. So how long did that one go?
Plus 30.
Whoa.